Let me tell you what most people get wrong about desire. They think it's a feeling, something that comes and goes, something you either have or you don't, like hunger or thirst. You feel it or you don't. And when they don't feel it, they think they've lost their desire. They think something's wrong with them, that they're not motivated enough, not driven enough, not ambitious enough. But that's not what desire is, at least not the kind of desire that creates success. Not the kind I'm talking about, the kind Hill talked about. The burning desire, that's not a feeling. It's a decision, a commitment, a chosen direction. And once you understand that difference, everything changes. Because you stop waiting to feel desire, and you start choosing it, deliberately, consciously, every day. Let me explain what I mean. When Hill talks about burning desire, he's not talking about passion. He's not talking about excitement. He's not talking about that rush you feel when you first get an idea. That initial spark, that I'm going to do this moment. That's not burning desire. That's just interest. Maybe enthusiasm. And enthusiasm is fine. It's a good starting place. But it's not enough, because enthusiasm fades, the newness wears off, the reality sets in. And if your desire was just enthusiasm, just that initial feeling, it's gone now, and you quit. You move on to the next thing, the next idea, the next spark, and you never achieve anything, because you're chasing feelings, and feelings are unreliable. They come and go, based on circumstances, based on mood, based on how much sleep you got. You can't build success on feelings. You need something more stable, more permanent, more chosen. And that's what burning desire is. It's a choice, not a feeling. You choose what you want, and then you commit to it, regardless of how you feel, regardless of whether you're excited or not, regardless of whether it's hard or easy. You've chosen, and you stick with that choice. That's burning desire. And here's what I learned. Most people never make that choice. They dabble, they try things, they experiment, they see what happens. But they never actually decide, they never commit. They keep their options open, they hedge their bets. They tell themselves, I'll try this and see if it works. And if it doesn't, I'll try something else. And that's not desire. That's just, I don't know, curiosity, exploration, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it won't create success, because success requires commitment, total commitment. The kind where you burn your boats, where you eliminate the backup plan, where you decide, this is what I'm doing, and I'm not stopping until it works. That's burning desire. And it's not a feeling. It's a decision, a permanent decision that you make once, and then you honor that decision every day, even when you don't feel like it. Even when it's hard, even when you're tired, even when you're doubting, you remember, I decided, I committed. I'm not backing out now. That's what keeps you going, not feelings, decision. Now, let me tell you why this matters. Why understanding this difference is so critical. Because if you think desire is a feeling, you'll spend your whole life waiting to feel it, waiting for inspiration, waiting for motivation, waiting to be excited again. And while you're waiting, nothing happens. You're not working. You're not progressing. You're just waiting for a feeling that might not come. But if you understand desire is a decision, you can create it. Right now, today. You don't have to wait. You just decide, this is what I want, this is what I'm committed to, this is what I'm going to achieve, and then you start. Not when you feel ready, not when you feel inspired. Now, because you've decided. And decisions don't require feelings. They just require commitment and follow through. That's all. And when I learned this, when I really understood it, everything changed for me. Because I stopped waiting to feel desire. I stopped waiting for inspiration. I just decided, I'm going to understand success. I'm going to write this book. I'm going to help people. And I committed to that decision. And some days I felt excited about it. Some days I felt nothing. Some days I wanted to quit. But I didn't, because I decided. And I honor my decisions. Even when they're hard. Even when I don't feel like it. That's what made the work possible. Not constant inspiration, not endless motivation, just commitment to a decision I made. And I want you to understand this, because if you're waiting to feel desire, you might wait forever. But if you're willing to choose desire, to decide what you want and commit to it, you can start today, right now. You don't need to feel anything. You just need to decide, and then act on that decision every day. That's burning desire, and it's available to anyone who's willing to choose it. Now let me talk about what happens when you make that choice. When you really commit to a burning desire, when you decide, this is what I want, and I'm not stopping until I get it, something shifts in your mind, in your perception, in how you see the world. You start noticing things you didn't notice before, opportunities, resources, people, ideas. They were always there, but you weren't looking for them because you weren't committed. You were just casually interested. But when you commit, when you have burning desire, your mind becomes focused, directed, seeking, and it finds what you need, not magically, but because you're paying attention now, because you're looking for it, because it matters to you. In a way it didn't before. I saw this in my own life. Before I committed to my research, to my book, I'd have conversations with people and I wouldn't really hear them. I'd be polite. I'd listen. But I wasn't absorbing. I wasn't connecting what they said to what I was trying to understand. But after I committed, after I developed burning desire for this work, every conversation became research. Every person I met had something to teach me. Every experience connected to what I was trying to learn. And it's not that the world changed. I changed. My focus changed. My attention changed. And suddenly, everything was relevant. Everything was useful. Everything was part of the work. That's what burning desire does. It focuses you, sharpens you, makes you efficient, because you're not scattered anymore. You're not interested in 1,000 things. You're committed to one thing. And that focus, that clarity, that's powerful. That's what allows you to see what others miss, to find what others overlook, to create what others can't, because you're focused in a way they're not. And that focus comes from burning desire, from commitment, from decision, not from feeling. Now I want to address something. Some people hear this and they think, but I don't know what I want. How can I choose if I don't know? And I understand that. It's a real question, a real concern. But here's what I learned. You don't have to know perfectly what you want. You just have to know approximately, generally, in what direction. And then you commit to that direction. And as you move in that direction, as you work, as you learn, your desire becomes more specific, more refined, more clear. But you can't wait for perfect clarity before you commit, because clarity comes from commitment, not the other way around. You commit to something that seems right. That feels important. That matters to you. Even if you're not sure exactly why, even if you can't articulate it perfectly, you commit anyway. And then, through the work, through the pursuit, you discover what you really want, what you're really after. And sometimes it's exactly what you thought. And sometimes it's different, but you couldn't have discovered it without starting, without committing, without moving forward. So don't wait for perfect clarity. Commit to approximate clarity and let the work refine your understanding. That's how it works. For everyone, you don't figure it out first and then start. You start and then you figure it out. Through doing, through trying, through committing. That's the process. And if you wait for certainty, for perfect clarity, you'll never start. You'll spend your whole life thinking about what you want instead of pursuing it. And that's the real tragedy. Not pursuing the wrong thing, but never pursuing anything. Because you were waiting for certainty. That never comes. Now let me tell you about intensity. Because burning desire isn't just about choosing something. It's about how intensely you want it, how much it matters, how willing you are to sacrifice for it. And this is where most people fall short. They choose something, they commit loosely, but they're not willing to pay the price. They want success, but they also want comfort. They want achievement, but they also want ease. They want results, but they don't want struggle. And that doesn't work. Because burning desire requires sacrifice, trade-offs, choices. You can't have everything. You have to choose. What matters most? What are you willing to give up to get what you want? And if you're not willing to give up anything, your desire isn't burning. It's just warm, mild, comfortable. And comfortable desire doesn't create success. It creates mediocrity. Because you're not willing to do what's required. You're not willing to pay the price. You want the results without the cost. And that's not how it works. Success costs, and burning desire is the willingness to pay that cost, whatever it is. Time, energy, comfort, security, relationships, sleep, money, entertainment. Whatever it takes, you're willing, because the desire is that strong, that intense, that burning. And when you have that level of intensity, when you're truly willing to sacrifice, that's when things start to happen, not before. Because intensity creates focus, and focus creates results. But without intensity, without willingness to sacrifice, you're just wishing, hoping, wanting casually. And casual wanting doesn't create anything except frustration, because you want something, but you're not willing to do what it takes to get it. And that's painful. That gap between wanting and willingness. That's where most people live, in that uncomfortable middle, where they want things they're not willing to work for, and they wonder why they're not succeeding. And the answer is simple. Your desire isn't burning, it's lukewarm. And lukewarm desire creates lukewarm results or no results. So the question isn't just, what do I want? The question is, how badly do I want it? What am I willing to sacrifice? What am I willing to give up? And if your answer is, I'm not willing to give up much, that's fine. But don't expect burning results. Expect comfortable results, which might be nothing. And that's okay, if that's what you choose. But be honest about it. Don't pretend you have burning desire when you have comfortable preference. There's a difference. And the difference is intensity, willingness, sacrifice. Now let me talk about something that confused me for a long time. The relationship between desire and deserving. Because a lot of people think, if I want something badly enough, I deserve it. The universe owes it to me. I should get it. And that's not how it works. Desire doesn't create entitlement. It creates motivation, drive, focus, but it doesn't guarantee results. You don't deserve success just because you want it. You have to earn it through work, through persistence, through learning, through growth. Desire is the starting point, but it's not the ending point. It's what gets you moving, what keeps you going, what focuses your energy. But the actual achievement, that comes from what you do with that desire, how you channel it, how you use it. And some people with burning desire still fail, not because their desire wasn't strong enough, but because they didn't have the skills, or the knowledge, or the persistence, or they made mistakes, or the timing was wrong, or 1,000 other reasons. Desire isn't a guarantee, it's a requirement. You can't succeed without it, but you can have it and still not succeed. If you don't do the other things, the learning, the adapting, the persisting, the growing. So don't fall into the trap of thinking, I want this so badly I must get it. That's not how it works. You want it badly. Good. That's the first step. Now what are you going to do about it? How are you going to develop the skills you need? The knowledge, the connections, the resources? Desire starts the journey, but it doesn't complete it. You complete it through action, through learning, through persistence. And sometimes, even with burning desire and all the right actions, you still don't get what you wanted. And that's hard, really hard. But it doesn't mean the desire was wasted, because the person you became in the pursuit, that's not wasted. The skills you developed, the knowledge you gained, the character you built, that stays with you, that serves you in everything else you do. So even if you don't achieve the specific goal, the desire wasn't pointless. It transformed you, and that transformation is valuable, maybe more valuable than the goal itself. Now I want to tell you about something I observed, about the difference between people who succeed and people who don't. And it's not talent, it's not intelligence, it's not even hard work, necessarily. It's the ability to maintain burning desire over time, long periods of time, years, sometimes decades. Most people can maintain desire for a few weeks, maybe a few months, but then it fades. They get tired, they get discouraged, they get distracted, and their desire cools, becomes lukewarm, and they drift. They stop working as hard. They stop caring as much. And eventually, they quit. Not dramatically, just gradually. They fade away. But the people who succeed, they maintain burning desire for as long as it takes. Not because they're more motivated, not because they're more passionate, but because they've committed, and they honor that commitment, even when they don't feel like it, even when it's hard, even when years pass without results. They keep the desire burning through discipline, through reminders, through renewing their commitment every day. And that's what creates success, not the initial desire, but the maintained desire, the sustained commitment. Over time, anyone can start with burning desire. That's easy. It's exciting. It's new. But maintaining it year after year through setbacks and failures and discouragements, that's hard. That's rare. And that's what separates those who succeed from those who don't. The ability to keep the fire burning when everything around you is trying to extinguish it, when doubt creeps in, when fatigue sets in, when everyone tells you to quit. You keep the fire burning through conscious effort, through deliberate choice, through stubborn commitment. And eventually, that fire creates something. It has to, because sustained burning desire combined with consistent action always creates results. eventually. It might take longer than you thought. It might look different than you imagined, but it creates something if you don't let the fire go out. So the question isn't just, do I have burning desire? The question is, can I maintain burning desire for as long as it takes? And if your answer is yes, if you're willing to commit to that, you will succeed. Maybe not immediately, maybe not even soon, but eventually, because that's how it works. Sustained desire plus sustained action equals results. Always. It's just a matter of time. And whether you're willing to wait. Now let me address a common mistake. People think burning desire means obsession, being consumed, thinking about nothing else, never resting, never relaxing. Just constant focus, constant work, constant intensity. And that's not sustainable. That leads to burnout, to exhaustion, to breakdown. Burning desire doesn't mean you never think about anything else. It means that when you need to focus, when you're working, when you're taking action, your desire is there, fueling you, directing you, motivating you. But you can still rest. You can still relax. You can still enjoy other parts of life. You don't have to be consumed. You just have to be committed. And there's a difference. Commitment means you honor your priorities. You do what you said you'd do. You work when you need to work. But you also rest when you need to rest. Because rest is part of the process. Part of what makes sustained desire possible. If you never rest, you burn out. And burned out people don't maintain desire. They lose it because they're exhausted. So part of maintaining burning desire is knowing when to rest, when to step back, when to recharge. And then, when you're rested, you return with renewed energy, renewed focus, renewed commitment. That's sustainable. That's how you maintain desire for years, not by being obsessed, but by being balanced, committed and balanced, working hard and resting well, focusing intensely and releasing completely. That's the rhythm. That's what works. And if you try to maintain constant intensity, constant obsession, you'll fail. Not because you're weak, but because you're human. And humans need rest, need variety, need breaks. So give yourself that, while still maintaining commitment, while still honoring your desire, while still working toward your goal. That's the balance, and it's not easy, but it's necessary for long-term success. Now I want to talk about what happens when your desire conflicts with other people's desires, with what they want for you, with what they expect, with what they think you should do. Because this happens often. You develop burning desire for something, and the people around you, they don't understand. They don't support it. They think you're wasting your time. They think you should be practical, realistic, safe, and they tell you, with good intentions, they're trying to protect you from disappointment, from failure, from wasted effort. But what they don't understand is that not pursuing your desire, that's the real waste. That's the real disappointment. Not trying and failing, but not trying at all. Because you listen to people who don't have your desire, who don't feel what you feel, who don't want what you want. And this is hard. Because these are usually people you care about, people you respect, people whose opinions matter to you. And they're telling you, don't do this. It's not practical. It's not safe. It's not smart. And you have to choose between your desire and their approval, between what you want and what they want for you. And that's a lonely choice, a hard choice, but it's your choice, not theirs. This is your life, your desire, your path, and you have to decide. Are you going to pursue what you want, or are you going to live according to what others think you should want? And there's no right answer that works for everyone. But I can tell you what I learned. If you abandon your desire to please others, you'll regret it, not immediately, but eventually, years later. You'll wonder, what if I'd tried? What if I'd pursued what I really wanted? And you'll never know, because you chose safety over desire, approval over passion. And that's a heavy thing to carry, the weight of unlived dreams, of unchosen paths, of unfollowed desires. So if you have burning desire for something, I encourage you to pursue it, even if others don't understand, even if they don't approve, even if they think you're making a mistake, because it's your life, your desire, your choice, and you have to live with the consequences. And I'd rather live with the consequences of trying and failing than the consequences of never trying. Because failure, you can process, you can learn from, you can integrate. But regret, that just sits there, unresolved, unresolvable, because you can't go back. You can't try the thing you didn't try. The time is gone. The opportunity is gone, and all you have is the wondering, the what if, and that's harder to live with than any failure. So pursue your desire, even if you're alone in it, even if no one understands, even if everyone thinks you're wrong, because you might be wrong, but at least you'll know, you'll have tried, and that's worth something. That's worth a lot. Now let me tell you about something that took me years to understand. The relationship between desire and patience. Because these seem like opposites, don't they? Desire is intense, urgent, burning, and patience is calm, waiting, accepting. How do you hold both at the same time? How do you have burning desire and also be patient? And I struggled with this for a long time, because my desire was so strong, so intense. I wanted results. Now, I wanted to finish the work, complete the book, achieve the goal. And the waiting, the slow progress, the years of effort without visible results, that was torture, because I had burning desire but no patience. And that combination, that's painful. It creates frustration, anxiety, desperation, because you want something so badly, but it's not happening fast enough, and you can't speed it up, you can't force it, you just have to keep working, keep waiting, keep trusting, and that feels impossible when your desire is burning. But here's what I learned. Burning desire doesn't mean you need results now. It means you're committed for however long it takes. That's the difference. Impatience says, I want this now, and if I don't get it soon, I'll quit. I'll try something else. But burning desire says, I want this, and I'll work toward it for as long as necessary. Years, decades, my whole life, if that's what it takes. That's not impatience. That's patience with commitment. You're willing to wait, but you're not waiting passively. You're working actively, consistently, every day, moving toward your goal, even when progress is slow, even when results are invisible. You're still working because you're committed for the long term. That's how desire and patience coexist. You have intense desire, burning commitment, but you also have realistic timelines. You understand that meaningful achievement takes time, that success is built slowly, that results compound over years, not days, and you're willing to invest that time. That's mature desire, sustained desire, the kind that actually creates success. Not the frantic, desperate desire that demands immediate results. That quits when results don't come fast. but the steady, committed desire that says, I'm in this for the long haul, however long it takes. And when I finally understood this, when I developed that kind of patience alongside my desire, everything changed, because I stopped being desperate. I stopped checking constantly to see if it was working yet. I stopped measuring progress every day. I just worked and trusted, and the work became easier, more sustainable, because I wasn't carrying the weight of expectation, the pressure of timeline. I was just doing the work, day by day, trusting that over time it would accumulate. It would compound. It would create something. And it did, but only after I learned patience, only after I stopped demanding immediate results, only after I committed to the long term. That's when the desire became productive instead of painful. Now I want to talk about desire and fear, because these often come together. When you have burning desire for something significant, something meaningful, you also have fear. Fear of failure, fear of wasting time, fear of looking foolish, fear of disappointment. And some people think having fear means their desire isn't real, that if they really wanted it, they wouldn't be afraid. But that's not true. Fear doesn't negate desire. Fear accompanies desire. The bigger the desire, the bigger the fear, because it matters, because you care, because the stakes are high. If you didn't care, you wouldn't be afraid. So fear is actually a sign that your desire is real, that it's important, that it matters to you. The question isn't, how do I eliminate fear? The question is, how do I pursue my desire despite fear? And the answer is, you just do. You acknowledge the fear. You feel it. You don't try to pretend it's not there. But you don't let it stop you either. You act anyway, with the fear, carrying it, not trying to get rid of it, just moving forward, despite it. And what happens over time is that you learn to coexist with fear. It doesn't go away, but it becomes familiar, less overwhelming, less paralyzing. You know, oh, there's the fear again. I recognize this. I've felt this before. And I kept going. And I was fine. And that familiarity, that experience, it makes the fear more manageable. Not absent, but manageable. And you keep pursuing your desire with the fear as a companion, not as an obstacle. That's maturity, that's courage. Not the absence of fear, but the willingness to act despite fear, because your desire is stronger than your fear. Not that you don't feel fear, but that you choose desire anyway. And when you make that choice, when you pursue your desire despite fear, something shifts. You become braver, stronger, more capable, not because the fear decreased, but because your willingness increased. Your capacity to act despite fear grew. And that capacity, that's one of the most valuable things you can develop, because life is full of fear, always will be. But if you learn to act despite it, to pursue what matters despite being afraid, you become unstoppable. Not fearless, but unstoppable. Because fear can't stop you anymore. It can be present, it can be loud, but it can't stop you. You've learned to move forward anyway. And that's freedom. Not freedom from fear, but freedom from being controlled by fear. That's what burning desire creates. When you're so committed to something that you're willing to be afraid and do it anyway. That's power, real power. Now let me address something practical. How do you keep burning desire alive when life gets in the way? When you have obligations, responsibilities, people depending on you, bills to pay, problems to solve. How do you maintain focus on your desire when there are 1,000 other things demanding your attention? Because this is real. This isn't theoretical. You can't just ignore your life to pursue your desire. You have to balance. And balancing is hard, really hard. But here's what I learned. You don't need to focus on your desire constantly. You just need to focus on it consistently. There's a difference. Constantly means all the time, every moment, never thinking about anything else. And that's not realistic, not sustainable. But consistently means regularly, predictably, with commitment. You have set times, set days, set hours when you work on your desire, when you give it attention, when you move it forward, and the rest of the time you attend to your life, your responsibilities, your obligations. You don't feel guilty about that. You don't think, I should be working on my desire right now, because you've made a plan, you've allocated time, and during that time you focus completely, but outside that time you live your life without guilt, without pressure, and this is sustainable. This allows you to maintain desire over years, because you're not trying to do everything at once. You're not trying to neglect your life for your desire. Both get energy, just at different times. And what happens is, your desire moves forward, slowly but steadily, and your life continues. Your responsibilities are met. Your relationships are maintained. Nothing falls apart. And over time, the progress on your desire accumulates, and you look back and realize, I've been working on this for a year, and I've made real progress, even though I was only giving it a few hours a week. That's the power of consistency. Small amounts of focused time, repeated over long periods, create significant results. You don't need to work on your desire 40 hours a week. You need to work on it 4 hours a week, or even 2. But consistently, without fail, for years, and that will create more than 40 hours a week for a few months and then quitting, because consistency compounds, intensity doesn't. So, find the sustainable pace, the amount of time you can consistently dedicate without sacrificing your responsibilities, without burning out, and commit to that and protect that time. Guard it. Don't let other things intrude. During those hours, you work on your desire, nothing else. And the rest of the time, you live your life fully, without guilt. That's the balance. That's what makes long-term pursuit possible. Now I want to tell you about something I noticed, about the difference between desire and attachment, because these are often confused. People think they're the same, but they're not. Desire is wanting something, working toward it, being committed to it. But attachment is needing it, being desperate for it, feeling like you can't be okay without it. And attachment, that's suffering, because you've made your well-being dependent on something you don't control, something that might not happen, something that might take years. And in the meantime, you're miserable, because you don't have it yet. That's attachment, and it's painful, and it undermines your desire, because desperation repels, it creates tension, it blocks flow, it makes everything harder. But desire without attachment, that's different. That's, I want this, I'm working toward it, I'm committed, but I'm also okay now. I'm not miserable while I pursue it. I'm not making my happiness dependent on achieving it. That's freedom. That's peace. And paradoxically, that's what makes achievement more likely. Because you're not desperate. You're not tense. You're not attached. You're just working calmly, consistently, enjoying the process, trusting the outcome, And that state, that calm commitment, that's powerful. That's what creates results. Not desperation, not attachment, but calm, committed desire. And I learned this the hard way. For years, I was attached to my book. I needed it to succeed. I needed it to matter. I needed validation, recognition, proof that I hadn't wasted my time. And that attachment, that desperation, it was blocking me. I was trying too hard, forcing too much, and it wasn't working. But when I finally let go of the attachment, when I said, I'm going to do this work because I love it, because it matters to me, but I don't need external validation. I don't need it to be a bestseller. I don't need recognition. I'm okay either way. That's when it came together. That's when the work flowed, because I wasn't desperate anymore. I was just doing the work for its own sake. And that freed me to do better work, to think more clearly, to create more authentically. So if you're pursuing something and you feel desperate, if you feel like you need it to happen or you can't be okay, that's a sign that you've crossed from desire into attachment. And you need to step back, to release, to remember, I want this, but I don't need it. I'm okay now. I'm okay if it takes years. I'm okay if it doesn't work out. I'm pursuing it because it matters to me. But my well-being isn't dependent on it. That's the shift from attachment to desire, and it's liberating. And it makes success more likely because you're no longer in your own way. Now let me talk about desire and identity, because what you desire reveals who you are or who you're becoming. Your desires aren't random. They're not arbitrary. They come from something deep, something core, some part of you that's trying to express itself, trying to grow, trying to become. And when you honor your desires, when you pursue them, you're becoming more yourself, more authentic, more aligned. But when you ignore your desires, when you suppress them, when you tell yourself, that's not practical, that's not realistic, that's not what I should want, you're suppressing part of yourself, denying who you are or who you're trying to become. And that creates suffering. Not the suffering of pursuit, but the suffering of denial, of living against yourself, against your nature, against your calling. And I think that's worse than trying and failing, because at least when you try and fail, you're being true to yourself. You're honoring who you are. You're following your internal compass. But when you don't try, when you ignore your desires because they're inconvenient or impractical or scary, you're betraying yourself. And that betrayal, that creates a quiet pain, a persistent dissatisfaction, a sense of, I'm not living my life, I'm living someone else's life, someone else's version of what I should be. And that's a hard way to live. So I encourage you, honor your desires, even if they don't make sense, even if they're not practical, even if they're scary, because they're telling you something about who you are, about who you're meant to become. And ignoring that, suppressing that, that's a waste, not just of potential, but of self, of authenticity, of truth. So listen to your desires, take them seriously, not as whims, not as fantasies, but as information about your path, about your purpose, about who you're becoming, and then decide consciously, deliberately, am I going to honor this? Am I going to pursue this? Am I going to become who I'm meant to become? And if the answer is yes, commit fully with burning desire. And if the answer is no, if you consciously choose not to pursue it, that's okay too. At least you're choosing actively instead of just defaulting, drifting, suppressing. But make the choice, consciously, and live with the consequences, whatever they are. That's integrity. That's living deliberately. And that's what matters, not what you achieve. But whether you lived true to yourself, whether you honored your desires or denied them, that's the real question, the real measure of a life well lived. Now, I want to address something that confuses people. The idea that you should follow your passion, that you should only do what you love, that work should feel effortless if you're on the right path. And I think that's misleading, because it sets up an expectation that doesn't match reality. The reality is, pursuing your desire, pursuing what matters most to you, that's still hard. It's still work. It's still frustrating sometimes, boring sometimes, difficult often. Just because you desire something doesn't mean the path to it is easy, or fun, or always enjoyable. It means it's worth it. That's different. It means the difficulty is meaningful. The struggle has purpose. The frustration is part of something important, but it's still difficult, still struggle, still frustration. And if you're waiting for it to feel easy, for it to feel like flow all the time, you'll be waiting forever, because that's not how it works. Even work you love, even pursuits that matter deeply to you, they have hard parts, boring parts, parts that feel like drudgery, and that's normal. That's not a sign you're on the wrong path. It's just a sign you're doing something real, something substantial, something that requires effort. So, don't abandon your desire because it's hard. Don't think, if this was really my passion, it would be easier. That's not true. Passion doesn't make things easy. It makes them worth doing, even when they're hard. That's the difference. And when you understand that, when you accept that your burning desire doesn't guarantee an easy path, just a meaningful one, you can persist through the hard parts, through the boring parts, through the frustrating parts, because you know, this is part of it. This is normal. This doesn't mean I'm on the wrong path. It means I'm doing something real. And that perspective, that acceptance, that makes the journey sustainable, because you're not constantly questioning, constantly wondering if you should quit because it's hard. You know it's going to be hard. You expect it. You accept it. And you keep going, because the difficulty is part of the process, not a sign to stop. Now let me tell you about something I wish I'd understood earlier. The importance of declaring your desire, of saying it out loud, of telling people what you're pursuing. Because keeping it private, keeping it secret, that seems safer. If you don't tell anyone, then no one will judge you if you fail. No one will think you're foolish. No one will doubt you. And that feels protective. But it's also limiting, because when you declare your desire, when you make it public, something shifts. You become accountable, not just to yourself, but to others. They know, they're watching, and that creates pressure, but it also creates commitment, because you don't want to be the person who said they'd do something and then didn't, who talked big and delivered nothing. So you keep going, even when you want to quit, because you declared, you committed publicly, and that matters. Also, when you declare your desire, you attract support, resources, opportunities, people who can help, people who have similar desires, people who believe in you. They come forward because they know, because you told them. But if you keep it secret, they can't help. They don't know you need help. They don't know what you're working on, and you miss out on connections, on resources, on support. That could make the difference. So I encourage you, declare your desire, not to everyone, not to people who will discourage you, but to selected people, people who might support you, who might help, who might understand. Tell them, this is what I'm working on. This is what I'm committed to. This is what I'm trying to achieve. And see what happens. You might be surprised at who steps forward, at who offers help, at who encourages you, and that support that can sustain you through the hard times, through the doubts, through the moments when you want to quit. Because you're not alone, you declared. And people responded. And now you have allies, partners, supporters, and that makes the journey less lonely, more possible, more sustainable. So don't keep your desire secret. Share it, selectively, strategically. But share it, and let people in. Let them support you. Let them help. You don't have to do this alone, and you shouldn't, because burning desire, sustained over years, that's easier with support, with community, with people who believe in you, even when you doubt yourself. So tell them, and let them be part of your journey. Now let me tell you about something that happens when you've been pursuing your desire for a while. When you've been working consistently, making progress, staying committed, you start to notice changes, not in your circumstances necessarily, but in yourself, in how you think, how you see things, how you respond to challenges. And these changes, they're often more valuable than achieving the goal itself, because they're permanent. They're part of who you've become. Let me explain what I mean. When you commit to a burning desire, when you pursue it over time, you develop qualities, skills, capacities that you didn't have before. Discipline, because you're working even when you don't feel like it. Patience, because you're learning to accept timelines you can't control. Resilience, because you're encountering obstacles and learning to overcome them. Focus, because you're directing your energy toward one thing consistently. Problem solving, because you're facing challenges and finding solutions. Creativity, because you're adapting, trying new approaches, finding different paths. And these qualities, they don't just help you achieve your specific goal, they help you with everything else in life. They make you more capable, more effective, more powerful in all areas. So even if you never achieve the specific thing you're pursuing, you're not wasting your time, because you're becoming someone different, someone stronger, someone more capable. And that person, that version of you, will succeed at something. Maybe the original goal, maybe something else, but you will succeed because you've developed the qualities that create success. And those qualities, they transfer, they apply everywhere. That's what burning desire does. It transforms you, not just by giving you what you want, but by making you into someone who's capable of getting what you want. And sometimes, the transformation is the real prize. The achievement is just confirmation, proof that the transformation worked. But the transformation itself, that's what matters. That's what lasts, long after the achievement, long after the external success. The person you became, that stays. And that person is capable of so much more than the person you were when you started. And that's not just theory. I lived this. When I started my research, I was scattered, unfocused. I'd start things and not finish them. I'd get excited and then lose interest. I had ideas but no follow-through. And if I'd stayed that way, I never would have succeeded at anything. But pursuing my burning desire, working on my book for 20 years, that changed me. I became disciplined. I learned to show up every day, even when I didn't feel inspired, even when the work was boring, even when I was tired. I showed up because I'd committed. and over time, that became who I was. Someone who shows up, someone who finishes what he starts, someone who persists. And that quality, that discipline, it has served me in everything else I've done, every project, every relationship, every challenge, because I became someone who persists, and that's worth more than the book. The book is wonderful. I'm proud of it. It's helped people. But the person I became while writing it, that's the real achievement. That's the real success. And I wouldn't be that person if I hadn't pursued my burning desire for as long as it took. Through all the difficulties, through all the doubts, I became someone different, someone better, someone more capable. And you will too, if you pursue your desire, not because you're special, but because pursuit transforms. It develops you. It makes you into someone who can succeed. And that's the real goal. Not just achieving something, but becoming someone capable, someone committed, someone who finishes what they start. That's the person burning desire creates, and that person is unstoppable. Now I want to talk about something that surprised me, the role of surrender in pursuing desire. Because these seem opposite, don't they? Desire is active, pursuing, striving, working, and surrender is letting go, accepting, releasing control. How do both fit? How do you work hard and also surrender? And for a long time I didn't understand this. I thought surrender meant giving up, quitting, accepting defeat. But that's not what surrender means, at least not the kind I'm talking about. The surrender I'm talking about is releasing control of outcomes, releasing control of timing, releasing control of how things happen. You stay committed to your desire. You keep working. You keep showing up, but you stop trying to control exactly how it unfolds, exactly when it happens, exactly what it looks like, because you can't control those things, no matter how hard you try. No matter how intense your desire, you can't control outcomes. You can only control effort, action, commitment. And when you try to control what you can't control, you create suffering, tension, anxiety, because you're fighting reality. You're resisting what is, and resistance is exhausting, painful, ineffective. But when you surrender, when you say, I'm committed to my desire, I'm going to work toward it, but I'm releasing control of when and how it happens. I trust the process. I trust the timing. I trust that if I keep working, something will emerge. In its own time, in its own way, that's peace. That's freedom. And paradoxically, that's when things start to happen. Because you're no longer forcing, you're no longer tense, you're flowing. Working with effort but without resistance. With commitment but without desperation. And that state, that's powerful, that's creative, that's productive. So, surrender doesn't mean you stop working. It means you stop trying to control what you can't control. And you focus on what you can control. Your effort, your commitment, your consistency. And you trust that if you control those things, the outcomes will take care of themselves, in time, in ways you might not expect, but they'll come if you're patient, if you're persistent, if you surrender the need to control and just do the work. That's the balance. That's the wisdom. Work hard and surrender simultaneously. Stay committed and release control. Pursue and accept. All at once. That's mature desire. And it's not easy, but it's powerful. And it's the only sustainable way to pursue something long-term. Without burning out, without becoming desperate, without losing yourself in the pursuit. You stay centered, committed but not attached, working but not controlling, desiring but not desperate. That's the sweet spot. That's where real achievement happens. Now let me address something practical. What do you do when your desire changes? When you've been pursuing something for a while and you realize, this isn't what I want anymore. I've grown. I've changed. My desires have evolved. Do you keep pursuing the old desire because you committed? Or do you honor the new desire? And this is a real dilemma, because commitment matters, following through matters. Not quitting when things get hard, that matters. But also, growth matters. Evolution matters. Honoring who you're becoming, that matters too. So how do you know? How do you distinguish between this is hard and I want to quit versus I've genuinely outgrown this desire? And I think the distinction is this. If you want to quit because it's hard, because you're not seeing results, because you're tired, that's not a changed desire. That's just difficulty. And you should persist through that. But if you want to quit because you've learned something new about yourself, because your values have shifted, because you've discovered a different path that resonates more deeply, that might be genuine growth, that might be a real change in desire. And in that case, it's okay to let go of the old pursuit, not as quitting, but as evolving, as honoring your growth, as choosing a better aligned path. The key is honesty. With yourself, are you running away from difficulty? Or are you moving toward growth? And you know the answer. Deep down, you know if you're quitting because it's hard, or if you're letting go because it's not right anymore. And that distinction matters, because one is weakness, and one is wisdom, one is giving up, and one is growing up. So be honest. Ask yourself, am I wanting to quit because this is hard, or because this isn't who I am anymore? And trust your answer. If it's because it's hard, persist, push through, honor your commitment. But if it's because you've genuinely changed, if your desire has evolved, honor that too. Let go of the old, embrace the new, without guilt, without feeling like you failed. Because you didn't fail, you grew. And growth sometimes means changing direction, choosing differently, pursuing something new. And that's not failure. That's life. That's evolution. That's being human. So don't be rigid. Don't cling to old desires just because you committed. But also don't be flighty. Don't abandon things just because they're hard. Find the balance, the wisdom, the discernment, to know when to persist and when to evolve, and trust yourself to make that call. You know, even if it's not always clear, even if it takes time to figure out, you know what's real, what's right, what's true for you. Trust that. Now I want to tell you about the relationship between desire and service, because I think the deepest desires, the most meaningful ones, they're not just about what you want for yourself. They're about what you want to give, to contribute, to create for others. And when your desire includes service, when it's about something bigger than just your own benefit, that changes everything. It gives you motivation beyond self-interest. When things get hard, when you're tired, when you want to quit, you can remember, this isn't just for me. This is for the people I'm trying to help, the contribution I'm trying to make, the difference I'm trying to create. And that gives you strength beyond what personal desire alone can provide, because personal desire can fade when the novelty wears off, when the obstacles mount, when the cost becomes clear. But service-oriented desire, that's more resilient, because it's not about you feeling good, it's about creating something good for others. And that's deeper, more sustainable, more meaningful. I discovered this with my book. Initially, my desire was personal. I wanted to understand success. I wanted to prove something to myself, to others. I wanted recognition, validation, and those desires got me started. But they weren't enough to sustain me through 20 years, through all the difficulties. What sustained me was the shift from I want this for me to I want this for others, for the people who need this information, who are struggling, who are trying to succeed but don't know how. I want to help them. And once my desire became about service, about contribution, everything changed. I stopped caring so much about recognition, about validation, about whether people thought I was smart. I cared about whether the work was helpful, whether it was clear, whether it was true, and that focus, that service orientation that gave me strength when I was tired, when I doubted, when I wanted to quit. I'd remember, this isn't about me. This is about the work, about the contribution, about helping people. And I'd keep going, because service is more motivating than self-interest, at least for sustained effort over long periods. So if you're pursuing something and you're struggling to maintain desire, ask yourself, how does this serve others? How does this contribute? What difference will this make? And if you can connect your desire to service, to contribution, to something beyond yourself, you'll find strength, motivation, resilience that you didn't have when it was just about you. That's not to say personal desires are wrong. They're not. They're valid. They're important. But the deepest, most sustainable desires, they include service. They include contribution. They include making a difference. And when you tap into that, when you make that part of your desire, you become unstoppable, not for yourself, but for what you're trying to create, for who you're trying to help. And that's powerful. That's the kind of desire that changes the world. Not just your world, but the world. Now, let me talk about something I see often. People who have desire but no plan. They know what they want. They're committed. But they don't know how to get there. They don't have a strategy, a roadmap, a clear next step. And they're just hoping, wishing, wanting, but not doing, because they don't know what to do. And that's frustrating, because desire without direction is just yearning. It doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't create anything. It just sits there, creating frustration, creating restlessness, but not progress. So if you have burning desire, you also need a plan, not a perfect plan, not a detailed plan, just a general direction, a sense of what to try first, what to learn, what to do, and then you start. You take the first step, even if you're not sure it's the right step, even if you might have to adjust later. You take it, because action creates clarity. You can't plan everything from the beginning. You can only plan the next step, and then you take it, and then you see what happens, and then you plan the next step based on what you learned. And you keep doing that, one step at a time, and over time, the path emerges. Not all at once, but progressively, as you move forward, as you take action, as you learn. So don't wait for a complete plan before you start. Start with an incomplete plan, start with a direction, start with a guess, and then adjust as you go. That's how everyone does it. No one has a complete plan at the beginning. They have a direction, and they trust that the path will become clearer as they move forward, and it does. If they keep moving, if they keep taking steps, even uncertain steps, even small steps, even steps that might be wrong, they keep moving, and the path reveals itself, because the path isn't out there waiting to be discovered. The path is created by walking, by trying, by doing. So if you have desire but no clear plan, that's okay. That's normal. Just start. Take one step. See what happens. Learn. Adjust. Take another step. And trust that over time, the path will become clear. Not through planning, but through walking. Through doing. Through trying. That's how it works. For everyone. So stop waiting for clarity before you start. Start, and clarity will come. Through action, through experience, through trying. That's the only way it comes. Now I want to address one more thing before we move on. The difference between burning desire and desperation, because these can look similar. Both are intense, both are urgent, both are all-consuming, but they're fundamentally different. Burning desire comes from abundance, from, I want this, I'm working toward this, but I'm okay now. I have value now. I'm enough now. It's pursuing from wholeness. Desperation comes from lack, from I need this. I'm not okay without this. I'm not enough without this. I have to have this or I'm worthless. It's pursuing from emptiness. And that difference, that changes everything. Because burning desire is empowering. It energizes you. It focuses you. It makes you more capable. But desperation is depleting. It exhausts you. It makes you frantic. It clouds your judgment. Burning desire attracts. People want to help you, support you, partner with you, because your energy is positive, inspiring, contagious, but desperation repels. People sense the neediness, the grasping, the emptiness, and they pull back because it's uncomfortable, it's draining. So if your desire feels desperate, if it feels like neediness, like grasping, that's a sign that you need to step back, to work on yourself first, to build a foundation of self-worth, of wholeness, of okayness, independent of the goal. And then, from that place of wholeness, you can pursue your desire with clean energy, with clarity, with strength, instead of from emptiness, from need, from desperation. And the pursuit will be different, easier, more effective, more sustainable, because you're not trying to fill a hole with achievement. You're trying to express abundance through contribution, and that's healthy. That's powerful. That's the kind of desire that actually creates success. So check your motivation. Check the energy behind your desire. Is it abundance or is it lack? Is it, I want to create this, or I need this to be okay? And if it's the latter, if it's need, work on that first. Build your sense of worth, your sense of wholeness, your sense of okayness, independent of achievement. And then pursue your desire from that place, from strength, from abundance, from wholeness, and watch how different it feels, how much more effective you become, how much more you enjoy the process, because you're not desperate anymore. You're just creating from desire, from choice, from abundance. And that's freedom, that's joy, that's the right energy for pursuit. It's getting late now, and I want to talk about something quieter, something that happens in the stillness, when you're alone with your desire, when nobody's watching, when it's just you and what you want. And you have to ask yourself, honestly, is this real? Is this truly what I want? Or is this what I think I should want? Because there's a difference. And that difference matters more than almost anything else, because pursuing what you think you should want That's a recipe for emptiness. Even if you succeed, even if you achieve it, it won't feel like you thought it would, because it wasn't really yours. It was borrowed from society, from family, from expectations, from some idea of who you're supposed to be, but not from your actual self, your actual desires, your actual calling. And I've seen this. People who achieve impressive things, things everyone else admires, things that look like success, but they're miserable because they achieved someone else's dream, not their own. They climbed the ladder, only to realize it was leaning against the wrong wall. And that's tragic. Not because they failed, but because they succeeded at the wrong thing. So before you commit to burning desire, before you invest years of your life pursuing something, make sure it's truly yours, not what your parents want, not what would impress people, not what seems prestigious or profitable or safe, but what you actually want, deep down, in the quiet moments, when no one's watching, when there's no one to impress. What do you want? And sometimes the answer is surprising. Sometimes what you actually want is simpler than what you think you should want, less impressive, less lucrative, less prestigious, but more true, more aligned, more you. And that's okay. That's good, actually, because truth creates fulfillment in a way that borrowed desires never can, even if the achievement is smaller, even if it's less impressive to others. If it's truly yours, it will satisfy you in a way that someone else's dream never could. So take time to get clear about what you really want. Not what sounds good, not what you think you should want, but what pulls you, what calls you, what matters to you. Even if you can't explain why, even if it doesn't make logical sense, if it's yours, if it's real, that's what matters. And once you know, once you're clear, then commit fully with burning desire, because you're not pursuing someone else's dream, you're pursuing yours. And that makes all the difference in motivation, in persistence, in fulfillment. When you achieve your own desire, even if it's modest, it feels right, complete, satisfying. But when you achieve someone else's desire, even if it's grand, it feels empty, hollow, like something's missing. Because what's missing is you, your true self, your actual desires. So don't skip this step. Don't assume you know what you want. Actually examine it. Question it. Make sure it's yours before you commit, before you invest, before you sacrifice. Make sure you're pursuing the right thing, your thing, not someone else's thing. That's worth the time, the reflection, the clarity, because everything else depends on getting this right. Now let me tell you about the role of imagination in burning desire. Because desire without imagination is just wanting. But desire with imagination, that's vision, that's power. When you can imagine what you want, when you can see it clearly in your mind, when you can feel what it will be like to have it, that intensifies desire, makes it more real, more compelling, more motivating. Because your brain doesn't distinguish much between imagined experience and real experience. When you vividly imagine something, your brain responds as if it's happening. Emotions arise, neural pathways form, motivation increases, and that's powerful. That's what makes imagination such an important tool in pursuing desire. You're not just thinking about what you want, you're experiencing it, mentally, emotionally. And that experience, that creates pull, momentum, energy toward making it real. So if you have a desire, spend time imagining it. Not just in vague terms, but specifically, vividly. What does it look like? What does it feel like? What are you doing? Who are you with? What has changed in your life? Make it real in your imagination. See it, feel it, experience it, and do this regularly, daily if possible. Not as escape, not as fantasy, but as rehearsal, as preparation, as intensifying your desire. And what you'll find is your motivation increases, your commitment deepens, your focus sharpens, because you've made it real in your mind. And your mind wants to make the mental reality match the external reality. So it starts looking for ways, finding opportunities, making connections, guiding you toward the thing you've imagined, not magically, but through focused attention, through aligned action, through consistent movement toward what you've made real in your imagination. That's how imagination serves desire. It makes it more than a thought. It makes it an experience, a vision, a future reality that you're moving toward, not someday, but now, through imagination, through visualization, through mental rehearsal. And that's one of the most powerful tools available to anyone with burning desire. Use it. Make time for it. Guard it, because it's not wasted time. It's investment in intensifying your desire, in clarifying your vision, in programming your mind to create what you want. That's what imagination does, when used intentionally, in service of desire. Now I want to address something that stops many people: the gap between where they are and where they want to be. It looks so big, so impossible, so overwhelming. And they think, I can't get there from here. It's too far, too much, too big. And they quit before they even start, because they're looking at the whole distance instead of the first step. But here's what I learned. You don't have to see the whole path. You just have to see the next step, just one step, and you take it. And then, from that new position, you see the next step, and you take that one. And slowly, step by step, you cover the distance. You cross the gap. Not all at once, but progressively, over time. And the people who succeed, they're not the ones who could see the whole path at the beginning. They're the ones who were willing to take the first step, without seeing the rest of the path, without knowing how it would all work out. They just started and trusted that the path would reveal itself as they moved forward. And it did, because that's how paths work. They reveal themselves through walking, not through looking. So if you're overwhelmed by the size of your desire, by the distance between here and there, that's normal. That's how it looks to everyone at the beginning. But don't let that stop you. Don't think you need to see the whole path before you start. You don't. You just need to see one step and be willing to take it. Even without knowing what comes next, even without certainty about the outcome, you take the step, and then you see what happens. And then you take another step based on what you learned, and you keep doing that, one step at a time. And after enough steps, you look back and realize, I've covered a lot of distance. I'm not where I was. I'm closer, much closer. And that's how desire gets achieved. Not through seeing the whole path, but through taking the first step, and then the next, and then the next, one at a time, until you arrive. And the arrival surprises you, not because you didn't think it was possible, but because you were so focused on the steps you didn't realize how far you'd come until you were there. That's how it works for everyone. Small steps taken consistently over time, create big achievements, and anyone can take small steps. You don't need confidence. You don't need to see the whole path. You just need to see one step and be willing to take it. That's enough. That's all that's required. To start, and starting, that's the hardest part. Once you start, once you're moving, momentum builds. But getting that first step, that takes courage. Not because it's a big step, but because it's taken without certainty, without guarantees, without seeing the whole path. You step into the unknown and trust that the next step will appear when you need it. And it does. If you keep moving, if you keep stepping, the path reveals itself to those who walk, not to those who wait to see it first. Now let me talk about something important. The difference between obsession and dedication, because both involve intense focus, both involve sustained effort, both involve sacrifice. But they're different, and the difference matters, because one is healthy and one is destructive. Obsession is when you can't think about anything else, when your whole identity becomes wrapped up in your desire, when you neglect everything else. Health, relationships, rest, joy, everything becomes secondary to the pursuit. And that's not sustainable. That's not healthy. That leads to burnout, to breakdown, to losing yourself in the pursuit. And even if you achieve your goal, you'll have paid too high a price. You'll have lost too much, sacrificed too much, and the achievement will be hollow. Because you're hollow. You gave everything to the goal, and there's nothing left of you. But dedication is different. Dedication is intense commitment, but with boundaries, with balance. You work hard toward your goal. You sacrifice for it. You prioritize it, but not at the expense of everything else. You still maintain your health, your relationships, your rest, your joy. You still have a life beyond the pursuit. And that balance, that's what makes dedication sustainable. That's what allows you to pursue something for years, for decades, without burning out, without losing yourself, without sacrificing too much. So check yourself, check your pursuit. Is it dedication, or has it crossed into obsession? Are you maintaining balance, or are you losing yourself? Are you still taking care of your health, your relationships, or have those become casualties of your pursuit? And if you've crossed into obsession, step back. Restore balance. Remember, you're a whole person, not just a person pursuing a goal. You have other needs, other values, other parts of life that matter, and neglecting those, that doesn't serve your goal. Because burnout doesn't serve your goal. Breakdown doesn't serve your goal. You need to be healthy, whole, balanced to sustain the pursuit, to actually achieve what you want. So dedication, yes. Commitment, yes. Sacrifice, yes. But obsession, no. Loss of self, no. Neglect of everything else, no. That's not burning desire. That's self-destruction. And self-destruction doesn't create success. It creates collapse. So, pursue with dedication, not obsession. Work hard and rest well. Focus intensely and release completely. Commit fully and maintain boundaries. That's mature desire. That's sustainable pursuit. That's what actually works over the long term. Now I want to tell you about something I discovered, about the relationship between gratitude and desire, because these can seem contradictory. Gratitude is appreciating what you have, being satisfied, being content, and desire is wanting more, wanting different, wanting something you don't have. How do both coexist? How do you be grateful and still want more? And I struggled with this because I felt like I had to choose. Either be grateful for what I have and stop wanting more, or want more and feel ungrateful for what I have. But I learned That's a false choice. Gratitude and desire aren't opposites. They complement each other. You can be deeply grateful for what you have and still want to create more, want to grow more, want to contribute more. The gratitude isn't, "This is enough, I don't need anything else." The gratitude is, "I'm so fortunate to be in a position to pursue my desires, to have the health, the resources, the opportunity to work toward what I want." That's gratitude. Not settling, not giving up on desire, but appreciating the foundation you're building from, the starting point, the resources you have, and that gratitude, that actually energizes desire, because you're not pursuing from lack, from, "I'm not enough, I don't have enough, I need more to be okay." You're pursuing from abundance, from, "I have so much already, and from this place of abundance, I want to create more, I want to contribute more, I want to grow more." That's healthy desire. That's desire that doesn't deplete you, that energizes you, because it's rooted in gratitude, in appreciation, in abundance, not in lack, not in deficiency, not in, "I'm not enough without this." So practice both. Gratitude for what you have and desire for what you want to create. They're not contradictory, they're complementary. The gratitude grounds you, keeps you balanced, keeps you from becoming desperate. And the desire propels you, keeps you growing, keeps you creating. Together, they create sustainable, healthy pursuit. That doesn't deplete you. That doesn't make you miserable. But that keeps you moving, keeps you growing, keeps you contributing. That's the balance. Gratitude and desire, appreciation and ambition, contentment and growth, all at once. And when you find that balance, when you can hold both, pursuit becomes joyful, not desperate, not exhausting, but energizing, because you're creating from abundance, not from lack. And that makes all the difference in how the journey feels and in what you're able to create. Now, let me address one final thing in this section: the importance of reviewing your desire regularly, because desire can drift, can change, can fade without you noticing. And if you don't check in regularly, if you don't examine your commitment, you might find yourself pursuing something out of habit, not out of genuine desire, and that's a waste of time, of energy, of life. So make time regularly to sit with your desire, to ask yourself, is this still what I want? Does this still matter to me? Am I still committed to this? And answer honestly, not what you think you should say, not what would be consistent, but what's true now, in this moment. And if the answer is yes, if you're still committed, wonderful. Renew that commitment, recommit, and keep going. But if the answer is no, if something has shifted, if your desire has changed, honor that. Don't keep pursuing something just because you used to want it. Life is too short. Pursue what you want now, what matters now, what calls you now, and let go of what no longer serves you, without guilt, without feeling like you failed. You didn't fail. You grew. You changed. You evolved. And that's healthy. That's human. That's life. So check in regularly, monthly, quarterly, whatever rhythm works, but check in. Make sure your actions still align with your desires. Make sure you're still pursuing what matters, because desires can change, and that's okay. What's not okay is pursuing something that no longer matters, out of habit, out of obligation, out of fear of admitting you've changed. That's waste. Don't do that. Be honest. Be current. Be aligned with who you are now, not who you were, now. And if that means changing direction, change direction. If it means releasing an old desire, release it. If it means embracing a new desire, embrace it. Stay aligned, stay true, stay current. That's integrity, that's wisdom. That's living deliberately, not just once, but continuously, checking in, adjusting, aligning, so your actions always match your current desires, not your past desires, your current ones. That's the practice. That's the discipline. That's how you live with integrity. And burning desire. We're getting close to the end now, and I want to talk about something that often gets overlooked. The role of doubt in pursuing burning desire. Because people think doubt is the enemy. That if you have doubt, your desire isn't real. That true desire means unwavering certainty. But that's not true. That's not how it works. Doubt and desire coexist, always, in everyone. Even the most successful people I interviewed, they all had doubt. Persistent, recurring doubt about whether they could achieve their goals, about whether it was worth it, about whether they were capable. The doubt never went away. They just learned to act despite it, to keep working while doubting, to maintain commitment even when uncertain. That's what separated them from people who didn't succeed. Not the absence of doubt, but the willingness to move forward with doubt, to treat doubt as information, not as a stop sign. And I want you to understand this, because if you're waiting for doubt to disappear before you pursue your desire, you'll wait forever. Doubt doesn't disappear. It's part of the human experience, part of attempting anything significant, part of growth. So instead of trying to eliminate doubt, learn to work with it, to acknowledge it without letting it control you, to hear it without obeying it. Doubt says, "This might not work." And you respond, "Maybe, but I'm trying anyway." Doubt says, "You might fail." And you respond, "Probably, but I'm learning." Doubt says, "People will judge you." And you respond, "Possibly, but that's not my concern." You don't argue with doubt. You don't try to prove it wrong. You just acknowledge it and then act anyway, based on your commitment, not based on your certainty. Because commitment doesn't require certainty, it just requires choice. You choose to pursue your desire, even with doubt, even with uncertainty, even with fear. And that choice, repeated daily, that's what creates success. Not confidence, choice, not certainty, commitment, not fearlessness, courage, which is acting despite fear, acting despite doubt, acting despite uncertainty. That's courage. And that's what burning desire requires. Not the absence of doubt, but the presence of commitment. Stronger than doubt, more persistent than doubt. So if you have doubt, welcome. You're normal. You're human. Join everyone else who's ever attempted something meaningful. And now, with your doubt, with your uncertainty, with your fear, make a choice. Are you going to let doubt stop you? Or are you going to pursue your desire anyway? That's the only question that matters. Not whether you have doubt, but what you do with it. And I encourage you, act despite it. Not because you're certain, but because you're committed. That's enough. That's all you need. Now let me tell you about the relationship between burning desire and daily habits. Because desire alone isn't enough. You need systems, structures, daily practices that move you toward your goal, little by little, day by day. And these habits, these daily actions, they might seem insignificant, boring even, not dramatic, not exciting, just showing up, doing the work, day after day. But this is where achievement actually happens. Not in the big moments, not in the breakthroughs, but in the accumulation of small, consistent actions over time. And burning desire is what gives you the motivation to create those habits, to maintain those systems, to show up daily, even when you don't feel like it, even when progress is invisible, even when it seems pointless. Your desire reminds you, this matters, this is building something, this is moving me toward my goal. And so you do the work, you maintain the habit, you show up, and over months, over years, those small habits create massive results, results that seem sudden to others. Overnight success, they call it, but you know better. You know it was thousands of small actions, accumulated over years, creating the foundation, building the capacity, developing the skills, that allowed the breakthrough to happen. And none of that would have happened without the daily habits, the consistent showing up, the boring, repetitive work, that burning desire, motivated. So if you have burning desire but no daily habits, create them. Figure out what actions, done daily, would move you toward your goal. Even tiny actions, 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes, whatever is sustainable, and commit to those, make them non-negotiable, part of your identity. I'm someone who does this, every day, no matter what, and then do it, even when you don't feel like it, even when it seems pointless, even when you're tired, you do it, because you committed, because you have burning desire, because this matters. And watch what happens over time as those small daily actions accumulate, as they compound, as they build something significant, something valuable, something that wouldn't exist without the consistency, without the habits, without the daily commitment. That's how desire becomes achievement, through habits, through systems, through daily, consistent action, not through passion alone, not through wanting alone, but through wanting plus doing, daily, consistently, over time. That's the formula, and it works for everyone who applies it. Now, I want to talk about something that confused me for years, the concept of deserving. People would tell me, if you work hard enough, if you're good enough, you'll get what you deserve. And I believed that for a while. But then I saw that's not how it works. Because some people work incredibly hard. They're talented, they're committed, they have burning desire, and they don't succeed, at least not in the way they hoped. And others, they seem to succeed easily, without as much work, without as much sacrifice. And it doesn't seem fair. It doesn't match the idea of deserving. And I realized life doesn't work on deserving. You don't get what you deserve. You get what you work toward, what you learn, what you adapt to, and yes, what luck brings your way. Sometimes it aligns. Your work pays off. Your desire manifests. And it feels like you got what you deserved. But sometimes it doesn't. You work hard and don't get the result, or you don't work hard and get lucky. And the concept of deserving, it doesn't explain that. It doesn't account for that. So I let go of deserving, and I embraced uncertainty. Effort doesn't guarantee outcomes. Desire doesn't guarantee achievement. You can do everything right and still not succeed. That's reality. But here's what's also true. Effort increases odds. Desire increases focus. Persistence increases chances. And over time, over many attempts, odds work in your favor. Not guaranteed, but likely. So you stop thinking, if I work hard enough, I'll get what I deserve. And you start thinking, I'm going to work toward this because it matters to me. And I'll do everything I can to increase my odds, and then I'll see what happens, and I'll accept the outcome. Whatever it is, that's maturity, that's wisdom, that's realistic pursuit, not entitled, not expecting, but hoping, working, trying, and accepting. Whatever comes, and paradoxically, when you let go of deserving, when you release entitlement, success becomes more likely, because you're not carrying the weight of expectation, the burden of, I should get this, I've earned this. You're just working, trying, adapting. And that lightness, that openness, that actually helps. So pursue your desire, work hard, do everything you can, but don't expect, don't feel entitled, just try and see what happens. And trust that even if it doesn't work out the way you hoped, something valuable will come from it. Some learning, some growth, some unexpected opportunity that you couldn't have planned, couldn't have deserved, but that arose from your effort, from your commitment, from your willingness to try. That's enough. That's all you can do, and it's enough. Now, let me tell you about something I wish I'd known earlier. The importance of celebrating small wins. Because when you're pursuing something big, something that takes years, it's easy to dismiss small progress. To think, this doesn't matter, this isn't the goal, this is just a step, and you keep pushing, keep working, without pausing, without acknowledging, without celebrating, and that's exhausting, demoralizing, because you never feel like you're succeeding. You're always not there yet, always not done yet, always not enough yet, and that wears you down. Over time, it makes the journey feel endless, thankless, pointless. But if you learn to celebrate small wins, if you acknowledge progress, even tiny progress, everything changes. The journey becomes lighter, more enjoyable, more sustainable, because you're not just working toward a distant goal, you're succeeding regularly in small ways. And those small successes, they fuel you. They remind you, it's working. I'm making progress. I'm moving forward. And that gives you energy, motivation, hope to keep going. So make it a practice to notice small wins, to celebrate them, even if they seem insignificant, even if they're not the final goal. Acknowledge them, appreciate them, celebrate them. I showed up today. That's a win. I learned something new. That's a win. I completed this small task. That's a win. And over time, those small celebrations accumulate into a sense of progress, of momentum, of success that sustains you through the long pursuit, through the years of work, through the times when the final goal seems impossibly far. You remember, but I'm winning in small ways. Every day, I'm making progress. I'm succeeding. And that's powerful. That's what keeps you going when nothing else does. So don't wait for the big achievement to celebrate. Celebrate the small achievements, the daily wins, the tiny steps. They matter more than you think. They're not just steps toward the goal. They're successes in themselves. And recognizing that, celebrating that, that's what makes long-term pursuit possible, enjoyable, sustainable. So celebrate regularly small wins. They're not small, they're everything. Now I want to address something practical. What do you do when your desire conflicts with your current responsibilities? When you have a job you don't love but bills to pay? When you have family obligations that take time? When you have commitments that can't be ignored? How do you pursue burning desire when life is already full? And this is real. This is where most people live. not in unlimited freedom, but in constrained circumstances, with obligations, with responsibilities, with limited time and energy. And they think, I can't pursue my desire. Not now. Not until things change. Not until I have more time, more money, more freedom. And they wait, and life continues. And years pass, and the desire fades, or festers. But it's never pursued, because the circumstances were never perfect. But here's what I learned. Circumstances are never perfect. Time is never abundant. Freedom is never complete. If you wait for perfect conditions, you'll never start. So you don't wait. You start now, with what you have. Even if it's just an hour a week, even if it's just 15 minutes a day, you start, you find time, you create space. Even in the midst of obligations, even with responsibilities, you prioritize, you sacrifice, not your responsibilities, but other things, entertainment, distractions, comfort, things that don't matter as much as your desire. And you redirect that time, that energy, toward your desire. And it won't be much time. It won't be perfect. It won't be ideal. But it will be something. And something is enough to start, to build momentum, to make progress. And over time, as you make progress, as your desire becomes more real, you'll find more time, more energy, more ways to prioritize it. But you can't wait for that. You have to start with what you have now and trust that more will come as you demonstrate commitment, as you show up, as you make it real, even in small ways. That's how everyone does it. They don't wait for perfect conditions. They start with imperfect conditions, and they make it work through creativity, through commitment, through prioritization. And so can you. You don't need perfect circumstances. You need commitment and a willingness to start with whatever you have right now. That's enough. Now let me tell you about the final phase of pursuing burning desire. The phase where you've been working for a long time, years maybe, and you're tired, really tired, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually. You've given so much, sacrificed so much, persisted so long, and you're wondering, how much longer? How much more do I have to give? And this is the hardest phase. Not the beginning. The beginning is exciting, full of hope, full of energy, and not the middle. The middle has momentum, has progress, has visible advancement. But the final phase, when you're close but not there yet, when you've been working so long, when you're exhausted, that's the hardest, because you don't have the energy of the beginning or the momentum of the middle. You just have commitment, worn thin, barely holding, and you have to decide, do I have one more push in me? Can I keep going a little longer? And I won't lie to you, this phase is brutal, really brutal, and some people quit here, right at the end, right before the breakthrough, because they're too tired, they can't keep going. And I understand that, I do. But I also want to tell you, if you can push through this phase, if you can find one more surge of energy, one more commitment to keep going, that's often when the breakthrough happens, right at the end, right when you're most tired, because that's when you've done enough. That's when the work has accumulated enough. That's when the pieces finally come together. But only if you don't quit, only if you push through. One more day, one more week, one more effort. And I know that's hard, when you're exhausted, when you've given everything. But that's also when it matters most, that final push, that last bit of effort. That's often the difference between success and giving up too soon. So if you're in that phase, if you're tired, If you're wondering how much more you can give, I want to encourage you. You're close, closer than you think. This exhaustion, this difficulty, it's often a sign that you're near the end, not the beginning, that the breakthrough is coming. If you don't quit, so find one more push, one more surge, one more commitment, not from inspiration, from sheer will, from commitment, from refusal to quit after coming this far, and push through just a little more, and see what happens. You might be surprised at how close you were, at how the breakthrough was right there, just past the exhaustion, just past the moment you wanted to quit. That's where success lives, in the final push, when you're too tired to continue, but you continue anyway. That's when everything changes. We've reached the end now, and I want to leave you with something you can hold on to, something that might help when you're pursuing your desire and things get difficult. When doubt creeps in, when exhaustion sets in, when you're not sure you can keep going, I want to give you a perspective, a way of thinking about desire that might sustain you. Here it is, your burning desire, the thing you truly want. It's not just about achievement. It's not just about getting something you don't have. It's about becoming someone you're not yet, someone more capable, more resilient, more authentic, more aligned with your deepest self. And that becoming, that transformation, it happens through the pursuit, not after the achievement, during it. Every day you work toward your desire, you're changing, growing, developing, becoming more of who you're meant to be. And that's valuable. Regardless of whether you achieve the specific goal, because the person you're becoming through pursuit, that person is capable of so much more than the person you were when you started. And that person will create value, will find opportunities, will make contributions that the old you couldn't have made. So the pursuit isn't wasted, even if the specific goal doesn't materialize, even if you don't get what you thought you wanted. The transformation isn't wasted. The growth isn't wasted. The person you became, that's not wasted. That's permanent. That's real. That's the foundation for everything else you'll do for the rest of your life. So pursue your desire, not just for the achievement, but for who you'll become in the process, for the transformation, for the growth. And trust that even if the specific goal doesn't work out, something valuable is happening, something more important than you realize. You're becoming someone who pursues, someone who commits, someone who persists, and that person, that's who creates success, not just once, but repeatedly, throughout life. So the pursuit isn't about one goal, it's about becoming someone who can achieve goals, any goals, and that's worth everything. Now let me tell you something I learned about timing, about when breakthroughs actually happen, because it's not random, it's not luck, there's a pattern. Breakthroughs happen when three things align: when you've done enough work to build capacity, when you've persisted long enough to outlast most others, and when you're no longer desperate for it to happen. That third one is critical and often overlooked. As long as you're desperate, as long as you're attached, as long as you need the breakthrough to feel okay, it doesn't come. Because desperation blocks flow, creates tension, makes you try too hard, makes you force things that need to unfold naturally. But when you've worked long enough, when you've persisted faithfully, when you've built the capacity, and then you let go of the desperation, you release the attachment, you think, I'm okay whether this happens or not, I'm continuing because I'm committed, but I don't need this to be happy. That's often when it happens. When you've stopped needing it, when you've released the outcome, when you're just doing the work for its own sake, that's when the breakthrough comes. Not because the universe rewards letting go, but because letting go removes the obstacle, the tension, the forcing, and allows things to unfold naturally, in their own time, in their own way. So if you've been working towards something for a long time and it's not happening yet, check your energy. Are you desperate? Are you attached? Are you needing this to feel okay? If so, that might be the block. Not lack of effort, not lack of skill, but the energy, the desperation, the attachment. And if you can release that, if you can say, I want this, I'm working toward this, but I'm okay without it, I'm okay now, that shift, that might be what allows the breakthrough to finally happen. Try it. See what happens. When you release the desperation, when you let go of the outcome, when you work from peace instead of from need, you might be surprised at how things shift, at how opportunities appear, at how the breakthrough you've been chasing finally arrives. When you stop chasing and just work from calm, from commitment, from peace. Now I want to address one final misconception about burning desire. People think it means intensity all the time. Constant fire, constant energy, constant drive, but that's not sustainable. That's not how it works. Burning desire doesn't mean you're always burning. It means the commitment never goes out. Even when the flame is low, even when it's just embers, the fire is still there, still alive, still waiting to be rekindled, and that's enough. You don't need constant intensity. You need persistent commitment. Some days the fire burns bright. You're motivated, energized, inspired, and you work with passion, with flow, with joy. And other days the fire is low. You're tired, unmotivated, just going through the motions, but you still show up, you still do the work, even without the intensity, without the passion, without the energy, because you're committed. The fire is still there, even if it's just embers, and that's burning desire, not constant intensity, but persistent commitment. Through the high days and the low days, through the inspired moments and the mundane moments, through the times when it's easy and the times when it's hard, the commitment remains, the fire remains. Even when it's low, even when you can barely feel it, it's still there, still alive, still enough to keep you going, to keep you showing up, to keep you working, and that's all you need. Not constant passion, persistent commitment. That's burning desire, and it's sustainable because it doesn't require you to be on all the time. It just requires you to not quit, to keep the fire alive, even when it's low, even when it's just embers. You protect it, you tend it, you don't let it go out. And when conditions are right, when you're rested, when you're inspired, it flames up again, bright and hot and powerful. But even when it's low, it's enough to keep you going, to keep you committed, to keep you on the path. That's the truth about burning desire. It's not about constant intensity. It's about never letting the fire go out completely, about protecting the commitment, about maintaining the direction. Even when the energy is low, even when the motivation is gone, the commitment remains, and that's enough. That's what creates success over time. Now let me tell you what I hope for you, what I want you to take from this. I hope you find your desire, your real desire, not what you think you should want, but what you actually want, deep down, in the quiet moments, when nobody's watching, when there's no one to impress. I hope you find that, and I hope you honor it. Even if it doesn't make sense, even if it's not practical, even if it's scary. I hope you honor it, because that desire, that's part of who you are, part of what you're here to do, part of your path. And ignoring it, suppressing it, that's a betrayal of yourself, of your potential, of your purpose. So honor it, pursue it, even if you're afraid, even if you doubt, even if you're not sure how. Just start. Take one step, see what happens, and then take another step, and keep going for as long as it takes. And I hope you learn patience, the kind that coexists with intensity, the kind that says, I want this deeply, and I'm willing to wait as long as necessary. Not passive waiting, active waiting, working waiting, committed waiting. The kind that builds something over time, even when progress is invisible. And I hope you develop resilience, the kind that lets you fail and keep trying, that lets you face obstacles and find ways around them, that lets you experience doubt and act anyway, because resilience is what makes long-term pursuit possible, what keeps you going when motivation fades, when inspiration leaves, when all you have left is commitment. Resilience keeps you going, and burning desire builds resilience through the challenges, through the failures, through the persistent effort despite difficulty. You become more resilient, more capable, more strong. And I hope you find meaning in the journey, not just in the destination, not just in the achievement, but in the daily work, the consistent showing up, the person you're becoming, the contributions you're making along the way. Because if you wait for the achievement to feel successful, you might miss years of value, years of growth, years of meaning that were there all along in the pursuit itself. So find meaning now, in the work, in the effort, in the commitment. Don't postpone fulfillment until achievement. Find it now, in the doing, in the trying, in the becoming. That's where it lives. Not in the future achievement, but in the present pursuit. And I hope you're kind to yourself through this process, through the challenges, through the doubts, through the failures, because pursuing burning desire is hard, really hard. And you will fail, you will doubt, you will struggle. And that's not weakness, that's human, that's normal, that's part of the process. So be kind to yourself. When you fail, don't condemn yourself. Learn, adjust, try again. When you doubt, don't hate yourself. Acknowledge it and act anyway. When you're tired, don't push beyond breaking. Rest, restore, and then continue. Kindness isn't weakness. It's wisdom. It's what makes long-term pursuit sustainable. Because you can't hate yourself into success. You can't shame yourself into achievement. But you can grow yourself there through kindness, through patience, through persistent, compassionate effort. That's what works, long-term. So be kind to yourself through this, and I hope you find support, people who believe in you, who encourage you, who understand, because you don't have to do this alone. You shouldn't do this alone. Find your people. Tell them what you're pursuing. Ask for support. Let them help. Let them encourage. Let them believe in you when you don't believe in yourself. That support, that community, that makes all the difference. Between giving up and persisting, between quitting too soon and pushing through. So find your people and let them in. Let them be part of your journey. And finally, I hope you succeed. However that looks, whatever that means for you. I hope your desire manifests. I hope your work pays off. I hope you achieve what you're pursuing. But more than that, I hope you become who you're meant to become. through the pursuit, through the effort, through the commitment, because that's the real success. Not the external achievement, but the internal transformation, the person you became, the qualities you developed, the resilience, the patience, the commitment, the courage. That person, that's the success. That's what lasts, long after the achievement, long after the goal. The person you became, that's permanent, that's real. That's what matters most. So pursue your desire, commit fully, work faithfully, persist patiently, and become the person you're meant to be, the person capable of achieving your desires, and any desires, because once you become that person, success becomes inevitable. Not immediate, but inevitable, because you've developed the qualities, the capacities, the character that creates success naturally, repeatedly, throughout life. And that's worth more than any single achievement. That's the real prize, the real goal, the real success. Becoming someone who pursues, someone who commits, someone who persists, someone who finishes what they start. That person creates value, finds opportunities, makes contributions that ripple out far beyond their original desire, far beyond their initial goal, into places they never imagined, helping people they never met, creating impact they never planned, because they became someone capable, someone committed, someone who doesn't quit. And that person, that's powerful, that's valuable, that's who the world needs more of. So become that person through pursuing your burning desire, through commitment, through persistence, through faithful, patient, resilient effort. Become that person and watch what you create, not just for yourself, but for everyone your life touches. That's the real power of burning desire, not just personal achievement, but personal transformation. That creates ripples everywhere, for everyone. And that's what I want for you. Not just to achieve your goal, but to become someone extraordinary through the pursuit, through the commitment, through the burning desire. That transforms you from who you were into who you're meant to be. Someone capable, someone committed, someone powerful, someone who creates value and leaves the world better than you found it. That's success. That's the real goal. And burning desire is how you get there. Not through the achievement alone, but through who you become in the pursuit. So rest now. You've heard enough. You know what to do. You know what burning desire is. You know how to cultivate it. You know how to sustain it. You know how to work with it. Now it's just doing it, choosing it, committing to it, and seeing what happens. When you pursue what you truly desire, with commitment, with patience, with persistence, with faith, you'll see what I've seen, what everyone who pursues burning desire eventually sees, that it transforms you, that it creates opportunities, that it builds something meaningful, something valuable, something that wouldn't exist without your desire, without your commitment, without your persistent effort. So go create that, starting now, starting with what you have, starting with where you are. Choose your desire, commit to it, and pursue it for as long as it takes, with burning desire, and see what you become, see what you create, see what emerges from your commitment, from your effort, from your burning desire. It will surprise you. It will exceed your expectations, not always in the way you imagined, but in ways that matter, in ways that last, in ways that transform you and everyone around you. That's the power. of burning desire, and it's yours if you choose it, if you commit to it, if you honor it, starting now. Good night.